Okay, thank you folks for joining us for our Honors College Colloquium here on April 3rd, 2025. Very excited to be joined by a few of my colleagues, Dr. Sara Lawrence, Dr. Trisha Ray, and Dr. Tabitha Dudley, and they are going to be presenting today on Nurturing the Garden, Understanding the Impact of Collective Teacher Efficacy on Student Achievement. So yeah, we should have some time at the end for questions. Otherwise, let us give them our attention. Oh, okay, there we go. Thanks.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you so much and welcome to our presentation on understanding the impact of collective teacher efficacy on student achievement. As Dr. Nkashian said, I'm here with my colleagues, Dr. Sara Lawrence, who is a professor of educational psychology and an instructor in our doctoral program. I'm here with Dr. Tabitha Dudley, who is the principal of West Lawn Elementary School in Texarkana ISD, and she teaches in our principal program. And I'm Trisha Ray, and I'm assistant professor of education leadership, and I coordinate the principal program and the Master of Education in Education Leadership. As educators of education leaders, we wanted to know specifically in Northeast Texas how leadership could have an impact on student achievement.
Yeah, and so that's where we started, and we were trying to figure out how we wanted to extend the work that we had done already. And what we'd come across were a lot of studies from the 1990s from Bandura and Goddard and Hoy, who talked about the power of collective teacher efficacy as a strong predictor for student achievement. And then Elvin, 2011, asserted the belief that if teachers together feel like they can overcome challenges to positively impact student learning, that this not only has an impact on the individual student, on the class, but it has a great impact on the school itself. So we looked at Karakowski and his colleagues for 2024. So what they were looking at were associations between collective teacher efficacy, teacher self-efficacy, and principal instructional leadership. And what they found was, after they did a meta-analysis with a number of studies, is they found that collective teacher efficacy was shown to mediate, meaning act as a bridge in the relationship between principal leadership and teacher self-efficacy. So that was showing how critical the collaborative leadership notion is in schools. Then we also looked at another study that was done during COVID with Anderson and her colleagues. They had somebody in higher education, and much like us, somebody who was a school administrator, the team. And they were looking at collective teacher efficacy, but they were looking at the enabling conditions that allow for collective teacher efficacy on schools. And so 5 conditions: supportive leadership, empowered teachers, embedded reflective practices, cohesive teacher knowledge, and goal consensus. And so the study was done, sent to almost 3,000 principals in Illinois, and during after data cleaning, they got 298 responses. And what they found was that, and you can see from the model that they have, which is a big part of this, it's a practical framework. That was their purpose for the study, was to find a practical framework for collective teacher efficacy and enabling conditions, is that you need that cohesive teacher knowledge, goal consensus, and embedded reflective practices. But what drives that is the empowered teachers and supportive leadership. The interesting thing was that they found that it wasn't necessarily the principal that needed to be the leader. It could be a teacher leader. It just needed to be a key actor. Okay.
So a couple of definitions that are important to this presentation from our study. Research indicates that collective teacher efficacy is a strong predictor of student achievement, with higher levels of CTE linked to improved educational outcomes across various settings. In particular, the belief that teachers collectively possess the ability to positively impact student learning has been shown to influence not only individual classroom success, but also overall school performance. Furthermore, third grade reading scores are widely regarded as a critical predictor of long-term academic success, with early literacy skills serving as a key indicator of future educational attainment and life outcomes. The ability to read proficiently by the third grade is often linked to graduation rates, future employment opportunities, and overall student well-being. So if CTE is predictive of student achievement and third grade reading is connected to positive student outcomes, we need to know more about what that looks like in our corner of the world.
So looking at our problem of study, despite growing interest in the CTE's role in student success, there is a little understanding regarding how CTE is manifested in high achieving schools, especially here in Northeast Texas. In this study, there were two type of questions we were looking at, and they were quantitative and qualitative. And under our quantitative question, it was, what is the level of collective teacher efficacy in high achieving schools in Northeast Texas? The sub-questions, there were 4 that addressed the qualitative aspect. 1, what factors contribute to a campus team's strong sense of collaboration and confidence to successfully instruct students on your campus? 2, how can school leadership better support collaborative efforts among teachers? 3, what is the greatest challenge on your campus? And then finally, what additional context, experience, or suggestions do teachers have regarding CTE?
So there is, we ran across a lot of literature on collective teacher efficacy and then the effects on low achieving schools. But what we wanted to do, because we are looking at a descriptive study of how CTE manifests itself in Northeast Texas, we wanted to look at high achieving schools, so high academic performance. And so the purpose of this was to inform strategies for teacher collaboration and instructional practice.
So our methods and analysis, we used a survey with both quantitative and qualitative items to collect data. We used Goddard's collective efficacy scale. We use the short form. It has been used since 2002. It's been in several studies and is well validated. We collected survey data from 13 schools, and then we followed up with 5 schools. So the data presented today represents those 5 schools. We did descriptive analysis on those 12 Likert type items. And then we did qualitative, for the qualitative side of the study, we did thematic analysis on 4 open-ended questions. So
we carefully structured and targeted elementary and intermediate schools that had third grade. Okay, so that was the inclusion criteria, elementary and intermediate schools, third grade reading scores, and of course high above the average, above the state average. So we identified 30 elementary and intermediate schools in regions 7 and 8, and we got 13 schools that responded to us and had 127 responses and ended up analyzing 104 responses. So what we did at that point is we excluded, because it is collective teacher efficacy, so the response rate per school was important. And so what we did was we eliminated schools that had less than 20% response rate. And then we did a follow-up on the schools that were at 20% or above, and ended up having 67 responses from those schools. So we got more from the schools with the most responses in the follow-up.
So as part of the selection criteria, we chose schools based in region 7 and 8, based on their performance on the State of Texas Assessment of Academic Readiness, or the STAR test, for the spring 2023 assessment. Campuses had to meet 3 conditions for inclusion in the study. One was that they have an A rating by the Texas Education Agency. Another was that they met or exceeded the state average for students who met the grade level expectation. So in the state of Texas that year, the 50% of the students met the grade level expectations for STAR. They also had to meet or exceed the state average for students who mastered grade level expectations. The state average that year was 20% for students who mastered the grade level expectation. Notice that the state average for economically disadvantaged students was 62% that year. Most of our schools fall right in line with that. School 4 is a little bit of an outlier and one that we want to study more deeply. It has 79% low socioeconomic population and yet had 71% as meeting as meeting the state standard. And no other outlier that we immediately see. And so we will be looking at that school a little more closely. Here is the aggregate data for our survey. There were 12 items. This shows 6 of them. We have items 3 and 4 were reverse scored. The items were stated in the negative. So when the scale directions told us to reverse score, that gives the positive perception by the teachers. So we looked at the mean scores, and a mean of 5 or a high mean, we used a 5 on a scale of 1 to 6. That tells us that the respondents generally agreed or strongly agreed with the statement. And a low standard deviation of less than 1 shows that most of the responses were close to the mean, meaning that participants shared similar views with little disagreement. This is a strong indicator of consensus around positive perceptions. So if we look at item 2, we show that we have a mean score of 5.13 on a 1 to 6, and then the standard deviation is 0.83. So the statement is that teachers are confident they will be able to motivate their students. In education, we know that a teacher believes that they can motivate their students, means that they usually can motivate their students. But this doesn't just mean that that teacher believes that she can motivate students. The teacher believes her colleagues can motivate their students. And that's where we start to see that collective sense of self-efficacy that research indicates drives up student achievement. Item 3 is one of the reverse scored items. It is stated in the negative. If a child doesn't want to learn, teachers here give up. So when we reverse score that, the positive perception is, oh yes, we don't give up. We do not give up. I don't give up, and my colleagues don't give up. Notice how tighter the range is on that item. The low was 4 on that one. And then item 5, teachers in this school believe that every child can learn. They do believe that. They believe not only that they believe it, but that their colleagues believe it. And so again, a tighter range and a low standard deviation. So then on the next set of, or the last 6 items, the ones that were reverse scored here are 8, 9, 11, and 12. And we will look at the items 9 and 11. Teachers in this school do not have the skills to deal with student disciplinary problems. That's reverse scored to say that teachers don't believe that. They believe they do have the skill set to deal with disciplinary problems. And that's an unusual statement in our particular climate. We normally hear in education, we can't do anything with these students. These are society problems. These are family problems. This shouldn't be at my class. So these teachers are saying, I can handle it, but not only can I handle it, the teachers across this hallway can handle it. And so that's a powerful statement as a former principal. Number 11 is learning is more difficult at this school because students are worried about their safety. And so this is another reverse score, and it was also the highest mean of people not believing that to be true. So what we did then was we took these scores and we used the survey directions to calculate a CTE standard score. And so that's the scores here on the right. And the first three schools scored greater than or equal to 500 on their CTE score, and that indicates that their collective teacher efficacy is above average. So with an above average collective teacher efficacy, you can, they met or mastered above the state. The last two schools were at 600 or above, and that means that they have a greater collective teacher efficacy than 84% of campuses. So again, to me, it's going to be school 4 and 5 that we're going to want to talk to. Okay.
Looking at our findings, we used open-ended questions. There were 4 questions once again. This one, looking at number 1, what key factor contributes to a campus team's strong sense of collaboration and confidence to successfully instruct students on your campus? It was overwhelming regarding the 5 schools and what they looked at and said. They said is a deep commitment to collaborative, relationship-driven school culture supported by a responsive leadership. Teachers emphasized that effective collaboration flourished when the administrators were present, in the work, supported, and looked at teachers as professionals. They valued the structure of time for collaboration, strong interpersonal connections, and an environment where shared goals and mutual respect are foundational. Across all content, the presence of a positive relationship, collective responsibility, and administrative investment is the success of both students and staff in essential and fostering confidence and instructional efficacy, as we know that to be true. Looking at the schools individually, one school, number 1 school, their theme was the staff collaboration, administrative support, and the data-driven instruction, built-in planning time, and a positive attitude. And one of the quotes there from a teacher, teachers are not afraid to ask for help. Our staff is willing to offer help, and our administration is highly supportive. School 2 theme was administrative support, open communication, respect and trust, clear roles, and teamwork. And one of the quotes there was open communication, trust, respect, clear roles, great leadership, proper tools and resources, and positivity. Looking at school 3, this school, the theme was strong leadership, communication, respect, teacher experience, and family-like environment. And one of the quotes, when we are given the time to collaborate, the teachers here have a lot of experience and knowledge. School 4, their theme, supportive leadership, cross-grade collaboration, relationships, positive climate, teacher commitment. And there, one of the quotes were, the climate and atmosphere of a campus drives collaboration and confidence. This starts at the very top. And then finally, from school 5, their theme was team-based culture, continuous improvement, student-centered mindset, and feedback and collaboration. And one of their quotes, continuous improvement of individuals and collectively as a school family. Strong administration team with a focus on supporting and growing all staff. Looking at question 2, how can school leadership better support collaborative efforts among teachers? That question, overwhelmingly across all campuses. The shared theme is the need for leadership to protect and prioritize collaboration time while building trust and autonomy. Teachers are asking for meaningful opportunities to work together, not just extra meetings. They want leadership to listen, reduce bureaucratic pressure, and intentionally create space for peer dialogue and growth. The most effective leadership is described as present, responsive, and empowering, not prescriptive. Looking at our individual campuses, school 1, the theme, time for collaboration, administrative presence, and peer learning. A quote there, teachers discuss what works for them to help other teachers with challenges. School 2's theme, realistic expectations, increased planning time, supportive culture. A quote there, increased expectations without increased time and support creates frustration among teams. School 3, their theme, time to collaborate, valuing teacher input and leadership development. A quote there, more effective communication. School 4, their theme, strong leadership, intentional communication, empowerment, and relationship building. A quote, I feel like our leaders do a fantastic job of supporting everyone on our campus. And then finally, School 5, their theme on this question, trust and autonomy, time and space to collaborate, encouragement. A quote there, let teams divide up responsibility, planning in ways that work best for them.
Okay, so open-ended question 3, what is the greatest challenge on your campus? And so, not surprisingly, participating schools said the educators consistently said that socioeconomic challenges and limited parent involvement were significant barriers. And so these external pressures, things that you can't, they complicate the work that schools do internally, making a collective sense of self-efficacy that much more important. One of the things that was really interesting is even amidst these challenges, we were really struck by the optimism and the resilience that teachers expressed in their feedback. 5 schools, go back to the stories. So the 5 schools, School 1, we are actively working together to mitigate these challenges. And so you'll see a lot of that it's not a sense of I or they, it's like we. So it's that collaboration. School 2, student motivation. They do not want to think through a problem. If it's hard, they just wait on it to be done for them. And then the majority, second one, that's right. The majority were just there waiting to be waited on and something else to happen around them. Then School 3, we are seeing big growth of SPED students due to home life and other key factors. And then, and what they find collectively is that students who struggle have typically the most or little no support system at home. But what we also found, and I don't know that these quotes in particular reflect, is that they were very respectful of parental involvement, meaning they have low parental involvement, high SES, but it's because the parents are working 2 jobs. And so it's not like they're blaming it on the parents, which was important. School 4, parents are right here. Parents are in challenging situations that are not providing a good home life. And then School 5, there are some low socioeconomic students, but those parents are just involved as the other parents, and that was an interesting one. So then it came to open question number 4, where it was very open. We were asking what additional context, experiences, or suggestions do you have? And so it was that resilient optimism that came out from it. And so that the teachers at these campuses, particularly the high collective teacher efficacy, showed great commitment to their students, campuses, and their colleagues. And so that there is a sense of trust, a sense of voice that helps to keep the collaborative spirit going. So here's some of the things that came out of that. So deep gratitude for school culture. This campus is truly 1 in a million. I've worked with other schools and have never experienced a group of people so united in doing what's best for kids. And then appreciation for leadership that supports and listens. They listen to our needs and ideas. Our leadership does a great job in this area. They are visible and responsive. Commitment to students despite the challenges. So we continue to check on them and try to help them even after they're not in our rooms anymore. The teachers also meet across the grade levels, consume specific content. And then recognition, burnout, and when you're working particularly in a situation where you have a lot of challenges of SES, low SES, burnout and external pressures are very real. And so while the tone was positive, several responses noted the impact of stress, fatigue, and a desire for sustainable support. So we are experiencing burnout at a higher rate due to all the stressors coming at us all the time, and teachers can't be expected to do it all. Okay, so this is still me. The significance of this study. So what was our research gap, and did we address it? And so we did. We have some sort of landscape as to that we have defined for Northeast Texas, and highlighting collective teacher efficacy functions in schools that are already achieving at high levels. And then the regional contribution, regionally our focus on Northeast Texas offers practical insights that can directly apply. And so it underscores the role of supportive leadership, structured collaboration, providing actionable strategies that schools and policymakers can use to sustain excellence. And then just another notion that early literacy predicts more positive outcomes.
In addition, the leadership and policy relevance. Here, the findings were that the leadership support, shared goals, and the structured collaboration really does drive teacher efficacy. And this can inform principal preparation and the PD that's provided. It gives them opportunity to ignite initiatives for school improvement and the policy decisions that prioritize collaborative structures in a school. The practical insight for schools is that the study offers actionable strategies for the school leaders in terms of to adapt, such as scheduling, protecting collaboration time, and fostering teacher voice to build and maintain high CTE, which in turn supports the students' learning. And finally, connection to the long-term student outcomes have since all included schools had above average for third grade reading scores and early reading proficiency strongly predict later academic success. The study contributes to the understanding of how teachers, beliefs, and systems align to support the equity and achievement over time.
So we're not through with this topic. We're just kind of getting started. We are building on this initial study, and we're planning at least two more important steps. First, we're going to conduct in-depth interviews with the teachers and the leaders from these 5 schools so that we can help understand how CTE plays out on the ground. What's working, what's challenging, and what leadership really looks like from a teacher's perspective. Second, we're gearing up for a statewide study of high achieving schools, and our goal is to gather data from a much broader cross-section of Texas schools that meet or exceed the academic expectations, particularly in early literacy. This will help us identify those common threads and regional differences in how schools foster and sustain collective efficacy. We hope to offer a comprehensive framework that informs leadership and policy and practice. We want to see what those enabling conditions are that creates a sense of collective self-efficacy on a campus. So we thank you for attending today and would welcome any of your questions or comments.
Okay, thank you. Before that, let's give you a round of applause. Yes, we do have some time for questions. I will open it up to folks on Zoom or in the room. I will take a little bit of, moderator privilege and ask the first one. So in typical sort of conference fashion, this is more of a comment than a question, but I do have a question as part of it. So I know very little about this, as my colleagues will happily tell you. My ignorance is vast, but it does put me in mind of the one dissertation that I got to sit on, which was Larry Gajewski's years ago, where he studied teacher burnout, and his findings were that it was tied to a low sense of teacher agency, right? And this kind of aligns very nicely with that. And I was very pleased to see all of the focus on collaboration. So might as well just jump right into this one. How does the rise of teachers who are not actually what's the word for it? Certified or qualified. Yeah. I mean, I just read a study today that 17 to 20% of teachers in our region do not have teacher certification. How does that undermine these sort of efforts to build teacher efficacy?
Oh, I think it has a huge impact on that. But one of the things that we did in they had to have been a teacher at that school for over a year, and they had to be a certified teacher.
Right.
So that's where we got our data from, because we didn't want, you know, that to kind of inform it at this point. But I think that's, you know, probably something that we need to address because it is so prevalent now.
Yeah.
That was actually sort of our previous study.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions? Any other questions? And folks on Zoom, you're welcome to either unmute or you can put it in the chat and I can dramatically read it as needed. Barney? Yeah.
Yes, I was noticing on here, question 1, you did have 1 school that talked about collaboration. Question 2, you had 3 that did. And you see collaboration as flattening the hierarchy there in among the teachers in their particular school? Is it flattening out? In other words, is there more cooperation, collaboration?
From a principal standpoint, I believe there is, but it has to come from the leadership to make sure that that takes place. So that time has to be created, which was also mentioned in the study, so that teachers can collaborate.
It's important to the principal certification in Texas because one of 2 certification tests has a performance assessment that takes a year to complete to do it right. If you submitted it as a paper, it would be a 50-page paper plus multiple artifacts and videos. And the whole thread of it is, can you lead a collaborative team? Can you create and lead a collaborative team to study data and you know, do a needs assessment plan and then implement an instructional practice to address what you found. And the whole thing, even though that's the backdrop of it, the whole thing is about leading that collaborative team and the processes and structures that you put in place to value people.
And I just want to take us back to the previous research. So, you know, we had the Karakowski study that said, you know, that was looking at principal instructional leadership, teacher self-efficacy, and collective teacher efficacy. And so it was the one that found that principal instructional leadership had a huge impact on mediating collective teacher efficacy versus teacher self-efficacy. But then you have the Anderson et al. Study that said it doesn't necessarily, well, the role of the principal is very important, but in the absence of a principal that is able to set those conditions, if you have another leader, a teacher, somebody else, they can do that.
Okay. Dr. Lees, please dramatically tell them what a wonderful presentation they did. Wonderful presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
That's the best you can do with dramatic.
I can be more dramatic as needed. I can do it in, I don't know, Middle English if you prefer. But any other questions or anything? Yes, Dr. Brzezinski.
When you're going through the profiles of the schools, you mentioned that one kind of wasn't quite that outlier.
Right.
Presented some interesting. Yeah, so what, I don't know that you mentioned it in as such, but like what, I don't know.
We're going to interview them. Another study by interviewing all of those schools.
So she's gonna do it. She's gonna
Volunteered.
Publication on it, but, and then we're going to go statewide and try to do something statewide.
Well, because it does seem the outliers are neat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are, and there were just enough statements in it too to kind of back up the numbers. And so they just seem interesting to me.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? A thumbs up, which I like. Okay, well done. Thank you very much, folks, again. And we will have, I think, one more official honors colloquium next week. I'll send something out about that. And then we have a few other opportunities before the end of the semester. And yeah, thank you very much. I'll get this posted on our YouTube channel and you can watch it at your leisure. See you, folks.
We appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you.